Il secondo è altrettanto autorevole, lo stesso Damiano Cerrone capirà che abbiamo un altro numero uno e lo conosce, il professor Mathis Wackernagel, che nel suo intervento, mirato anche lui al tema dell'urbanistica, si focalizzerà sul ruolo delle tecnologie per affrontare le sfide ambientali, in particolare sui rischi e le opportunità per le città e le aziende. Ma chi è Mathis Wackernagel? Voi tutti che studiate questi temi e siete molti già nativi digitali, ma lo state diventando quando avete superato gli ANTA, e ce ne sono di tempie grigie qua come le mie, è l'inventore dell'impronta l'impronta ecologica. L'impronta ecologica è la cosa più importante alla quale si devono attenere, il codice più importante al quale si devono attenere le istituzioni, comuni, regioni, quando pensano di creare una struttura. Io ho parlato fino
Questa
troppo.
è la vera sfida, Emilio.
Questa è la sfida di avere questa sostenibilità di cui tutti parlano, ma con qualcosa di concreto, con una impronta, lasciando un'impronta. Ci lascia l'impronta adesso il professor Mathis Wackernagel.
Grazie mille.
Thank you.
Grazie, professore.
Grazie. Buongiorno. What skills and intellectual potential packed in one room. Just look around. Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to be part of your community. I'm Mathis Wackernagel. If you've ever heard of footprint, like in carbon footprint, we've already met. Because that's what I started 30 years ago at my university. We're even related, even if you're a banana, because then you would share 60% of our genes. We are all biology. We're biologically connected. And that's why I love to be here, because you understand the importance of space. And when I say space, I don't mean Elon Musk's travels to Mars, but much more like space as area, because area enables life. It captures solar energy. Plants transform that into biomass. Biomass becomes food for all animals. It gives us food. It absorbs CO2. So space is really critical. We all compete for space. All activities are in competition for space. That leads to conflicts. And that's why it's so important to understand spatial dimensions and the geography we live in, because we can then deal with these much better. All ecological outcomes, perhaps not all, but the majority, are determined by these spatial competitions. You think about climate change, loss of biodiversity, or from pollution, ecological scarcity, all these things are in competition. Essentially, we live off what the biosphere can regenerate. It's about regeneration. How much can nature renew? Now, that's not new. Many people born before me have known that. And that also makes me a bit embarrassed. Embarrassed particularly because we've known about that we live by depleting the planet. And my generation has not been able to turn around the trends. That's highly embarrassing. And I feel particularly sorry for those among you who suffer eco-anxiety, and I know particularly younger people, possibly your children, talk about that a lot. Now, what's the upside? Given these trends of climate change and resource use, the future has never been more predictable. In the future, we know we will want to eat, we will want to sleep, we want to be moving around, we want to be safe. We know that all. And given all the trends of resource consumption, given the trends of climate change, we'll know in any scenarios there will be more climate change and more resource constraints. So actually, by knowing that, we can prepare for it. Within 60% of the year, we've already used up what Earth can renew in the entire year. That's about 7 months, a bit more than 7 months. That's about by August. That's why our organization has launched a yearly event called Earth Overshoot Day. I think in Italian it's called Il giorno del sovrafruttimento della terra, something like that. And it's about, last year it fell into August. And after August, there's still food in the fridge. It's just that after August, we start to live off depleting the planet. We're living beyond the budget of nature. Let me also explain that in money. For every $10 we produce, given that we use more, only 60% of them, or $6, come from regeneration. This comes from depletion. And then also we may remember that we're not the only species. To maintain biodiversity, ecologists say probably half would need to be left for wild species, the rest we could use for agriculture and ourselves. So in the end, $3 out of the 10 truly come from what Earth can sustain. How do we know that? It's pretty straightforward. We do what we call ecological footprint accounting. And it's based on the recognition that the ultimate currency is not money, but space. The space that enables to regenerate things. Because everything competes for that. Not just for food and for timber and for clothes, but also fossil fuels, because fossil fuels are more limited by how much the biosphere can absorb than by how much is underground. And the same is true for mining. There's plenty of stuff underground, but how much biosphere are we willing to give up to dig these holes and concentrate the ores? So it's a game for space. That's why I'm excited to be here. Now, how much space is there on the planet? There's a lot. Not everything is biologically productive. So the biologically productive areas on the planet, they add up to about 12 billion hectares. And we are 8 billion people. That gives us about 1.5 hectares or 1.5 soccer fields of space per person. That's the biocapacity. Now, how much do we use? So we can add up everything we consume. We use about 15,000 data points per country a year, which is not that much. But it's the UN data set. We don't want to be data picking, so we just use UN data. And so we come to the conclusion, globally, that our use is more than what's being regenerated. It's possible because you can cut trees more quickly than they regrow. It's possible. You can fish more quickly than fish restock. You can put CO2 in the atmosphere more quickly than it's being absorbed. It's possible to use more as you can use more money. Some people can. They can use more money than they earn, I hear. As a Swiss, it's very hard to understand, but that's what I've heard is possible. So just to see the comparison, you see this difference. So then we can calculate the ratio. It's a very simple ratio. You look at global demand, you divide it by global supply, and then we see 1.7. That means 70% more we use, or you can say it's like using 1.7 Earth, or you can look at the ratio the other way around and say by when have you used it. So 1 divided by 1.7 gives you the 60% I was talking about. 60% of the budget, that is, we use up everything of the budget within 60% of the time. So that's where the numbers come from. There's actually more data if you want to go. I'll show you the website. But essentially, using 1.7 Earth, that then gives us Earth Overshoot Day on August 2nd, after 60% of the time. Compared to, as I said, just using half a planet, we already have the goal of getting to 30% preservation by 2030, but actually ecologists think it takes more, 50%. So comparing half a planet with 1.7 planets, you see there's a difference of factor 3 in the global metabolism that we face right now. Now, I was announcing in my title, what's the good news? Let's get into the good news. First is, the good news is there's a lot of data available, and you're part of that, and that helps us make better decisions. Here you can look country by country, how we perform. But the even better news is the following. We know that any business requires resources. Economies require resources. But guess what? if you have businesses that when they expand, reduce overshoot, they're not just great for the planet, they're great for the business. Why? Because these businesses will not run into ecological constraints. They will not run into costs, and they will be needed more in the future. So actually strategy and overshoot goes far more hand in hand than people believe. Let me give you 3 examples. First one is some work we've done with the recycling company, because for every dollar typically the world economy produces, it takes 2 square meters of ecologically productive space to produce that dollar every year. That's like the farm of every dollar. 2 square meters, like the size of a single bed, you know? This company, because they rescue resources from society, for every dollar they add value to the economy, overshoot globally goes down 32 square meters. The more they exist, the better the world is off. And there are many other examples. Windmill companies, they require resources to build windmills, but the windmills displace coal power possibly, and then overshoot goes down. Or electric bicycles that displace cars. The more they displace cars, the more overshoot goes down. Let me give you a 4th example, because we're here in a data conference. If you're data companies and you work with cities, help cities get more efficient, the more you help, the more overshoot goes down. This is the greatest opportunity for value generation in the future. And it's not just kind of a bonanza, but you maintain things that can be able to operate in the future we can anticipate. That's what value means. The capacity to operate, the capacity to be useful. Now, there are hundreds of examples. If you go to our website, Power of Possibility, we try to overwhelm people with, there's actually too many possibilities. You can't look at them all. It's not possible for the entire economy, obviously, it takes resources, but there are many opportunities where you can actually be strategically of advantage by reducing overshoot. These are the most valuable assets of society. Now, let me give you even better news. What's the best news? And I have to tell that best news a little bit in the recognition of not so great news. You have heard of these climate conferences, countries cannot agree that well, there's not much happening. I recognize that. But the best news is you don't have to wait for anybody else. You can prepare yourself today because you know how the future will be. And the news gets even better. And our people from the defense probably, they understand that even better. The less others do to prepare themselves for the inevitable future, the more you are at risk. And that's excellent news. Why is it excellent news? Because it shows that for you to wait for others to act is economically insane. It hurts you. You have in your hands how well you prepare yourself for the future. What can you do? There are many possibilities. For example, if you're a city, why not support more pedestrian transport and bicycles rather than cars? For example, obviously. How about to change our waste system so we can recuperate the waste? Composting is, for example, a very important part that is underestimated. The way we power our houses, are our houses efficient? City planning. Are we getting out of the fossil fuel dependency? Are we electrifying our cities, etc.? There's so much potential. And then some of you may say, oh, I'm not running a city. Some of you are. Actually, all of us are. We are part of our cities. The way we operate makes our city work. And then I'm sure some people say, no, I'm not running a city. Tell me, what can I do? That's the most common question I hear. What can I do? If as we hadn't hundreds and hundreds of possibilities what we can do. What can we do? Let me give you the most important thing we can do. Here it comes. Are you ready? Sleep more. Why is that? We need rested brains. We can be more creative. You're a very creative crowd. We need your top creativity. We need you to be able to ask better questions that bring us together to find better solutions. And then we can make better decisions. And with better decisions,
We will not have to live off depleting the planet. We can live off what Earth renews. And then we can continue to have great conferences in great places like here without having to worry about it. Thank you very much.
Grazie professore.
Mr. Wackernagel, lei è svizzero, quindi un po' confinante, un po' di italiano
Sì.
lo mastica. Qual è la ecological footprint di Roma?
Non vuole sapere.
Non vuole sapere. Bella, brutta, così così? So?
We have a website called footprintcalculator.org where you can calculate your own footprint, your own overshoot day. But I'm not sure it's very empowering because people in the end say, oh, you want me to eat less chocolate. So I think I want to talk about the opportunities. We have city budgets, and the question with every euro you spend is, are you preparing yourself for the future, or are you buying yourself more traps?
Ok.
That's the big question.
Thank you, molto diplomatico. Buonasera, buon proveggio.
Grazie.
Grazie mille.